Welcome to edition number 1 of 100% Canucks. John Shannon here, Landon Ferraro in Vancouver. Landon, it's already been an interesting summertime or off season for the Canucks. Rick Tocchet is gone. Adam Foote is the new coach. First of all, your impressions of what Adam can do as the head coach.
I mean, it's another guy that has been through everything himself. So you instantly have that buy-in from the guys. And it's different. It's one thing if it was a star player that was straight skill, but he was a hard-nosed, played the game the right way with a lot of grit. Like there's nothing that he's going to tell these guys that he expects out of them that he hasn't done himself. So that's already a huge boost. But I think the biggest thing is just the fact that he has all the connections already with the guys. They'll have a general idea of what he wants, but I imagine early in training camp and through the offseason as he talks to players, like he's going to make sure the little differences that he wants to make are very clear, and he has a real clear idea in mind. Like he's been in this organization for a few years. He understands how it works and had an inside look at how, the things that he would want to change and try and implement.
How important is that comfort factor for a player?
It's really big. I mean, I was a guy that signed a lot of 1-year deals, and even in junior, I had 3 coaches in 4 years, and it's really hard when you're going into training camp, trying to make sure that you're at your best and performing as well as you can, but also trying to guess/figure out what the coach wants out of you. It's another new impression. Maybe you had a really good relationship with your old coach, and now you got to build up that new one. Or on the flip side of that, you have someone where it might not have had the best relationship. Well, that's kind of a breath of fresh air now, so they can go in and try and restart it and kind of go from scratch. But to have that camaraderie and confidence within your group already, like that's already a big step going into training camp.
Quinn Hughes has talked about adamantly that he liked Rick Tocchet. He also quite enjoyed the style that Adam Foote and his way of delivering messages for the coaching staff. Where do you place that relationship and its value to this franchise?
Well, whenever you're talking about the Vancouver Canucks, Quinn Hughes is the number one player, and you have to make sure that he's comfortable with things. And but I liked that Rutherford and Alvin had talked about they didn't bring this decision through Quinn Hughes. Like they made what was the best choice for the team. And obviously you have those discussions after, but Rick Tocchet was obviously the head coach and made the big game plan and talking with his coaches how he wants to utilize players. But Foote was the one dealing with Hughes day in and day out on the bench, standing at the back end with him. They would have had a million different tiny conversations on the bench, and each one of those is giving Quinn Hughes a look at how Adam Foote looks at the game, and vice versa, how Foote would like to implement different little things into Hughes's game that could keep building him up. So I mean, between the two of them, they've worked well together, and we've obviously seen Hughes's game take off since Tocchet came in, but Foote's a big part of that.
Fascinating to me is that when you look at the two guys, Adam Foote and Quinn Hughes, and you talk about the style of play that Adam Foote played versus the style of play that Quinn Hughes plays, they are diametrically opposed. And yet there seems to be a really good bond between the two. How can you explain that one?
I think respect for the game and respect for your craft. Like they might have played very different games, one holding the puck, the other one flipping it out as quick as he can and delivering massive hits. But at the root of all of it, it's a passion and love for the game and going about it and making sure that you're maximizing your abilities. Like Foote was able to do that for a very long time. And obviously Quinn Hughes has shown over the past number of years of what his game can be, but he's still always searching for that next step. And I think that's where that bridge can kind of be built.
Where do you put the rest of the defense on this club?
I still like it. I mean, I know it's there's young guys in there, but they've made and shown that they can play at this level. Is there going to be some mistakes through the early parts of the year and as they're growing? Of course, but then you have Marcus Pettersson, Philip Hronek on, as well as Tyler Myers. Like, there's some really good veterans there that can help those guys, and already have, through the last half of last season, able to help, kind of teach those young kids how to play and how to, kind of start to find their own game within the NHL. That's the hardest part. It's not hard to jump into a game and make yourself, just kind of get through it, but it's another to find your talent and be able to unlock it. And those guys are really helping that. And I think it's a really mobile and pretty offensive group, not even just saying numbers wise, but exiting out of their own zone. They can make plays. They want to skate and join the rush. It's all the things we heard them talking about at training camp last year, how trying to implement that. I think they have the better players to do that now.
All season long, or since the Miller trade, I told people there that in talking to my friends inside the New York Ranger organization, that we're going to really enjoy Victor Mancini. And I think that when the dust settles a few years from now, people are going to relish the fact that this guy came in that trade. Don't you think?
I really think so. I mean, you've been watching hockey a long time. Like, when there's a guy
too long, Landon.
Is there ever too long? Come on. But when you see a guy of that size, that frame, yet he can skate and he can move the puck at a young age, like, you can see where that growth can go. Like, that's exciting to see. And it doesn't really surprise me that guys in the Ranger organization weren't overly thrilled to have to throw that piece in, because, he did very well in Vancouver. He's had an exceptional playoff in Abbotsford. I'm just finishing my notes for game 1 of the conference finals tonight, and I'm really excited to go see where his game's at since the last time I saw him in the first round.
We'll talk goaltending. We'll talk number 2 centers, and we will talk about what Abbotsford's doing in the American League on 100% Canucks with Ferraro and Shannon. Back after this. All right, Landon. You've watched Arthur Shilov's play. He's been a tremendous success story in Abbotsford in the AHL Calder Cup playoffs. Does he have a future with the big club, do you think? Or are we going to be talking about Demko, Lankinen, and Shilovs in the wings?
It's an interesting conversation. I'd like to see where your mind's at on it, too, because for me, he's still a young goaltender that is figuring it out.
He's only 24. He is only 24.
And that's young for a goalie. You don't see them generally popping off till their later 20s. And for Shilovs, he's clearly shown that he can rise to a big occasion. He did it at the World Championships. He did it in the playoffs last year for the Canucks and played really well. He gets more of a chance this season with Demko being out right from the beginning of training camp. And, it's one thing when you're all jacked up, how big the game is, you're so focused on it. It makes it a bit easier to be ready. But when it's a full season, you have the entire year ahead of you, that's where consistency really has to come in. And I think a lot of that comes with age and experience. And this playoff run again that he's on in Abbotsford, and was the last game they won was 5-0 to get to the conference final. Well, with the play-in round, that's 3 series in a row that he's cleaned out with a shutout. Like, he's clearly finding his stride here.
So you asked what my opinion would be of the scenario. I think Thatcher Demko is still the best of the 3 goaltenders.
Yes.
But he's going to cost you more. He's entering the last year of his contract. And he's been hardly been healthy. Yeah. So there are a few, points in his resume that you wonder about. Can they marry themselves to a guy that really has a great pedigree, but can't stay healthy? I mean, if he could stay healthy, I don't think there's any question. Do you?
If he could stay healthy, I don't think Kevin Lankinen would have been here in the first place. Really, like they're expecting, Demko is going off his Vezina caliber year, and if he keeps going and there's not that concern, like that's a 1A that you can really ride and put a bunch of games on. But he's a big body. He plays hard in the net. Like every move is powerful and real aggressive. So there's no easy moments on his body. And I think the tough part is as you're getting into a bigger discussion, but as you're looking at, you need a second line, a top six center, you need some top six wingers. Those all cost money. It'll help having the young kids on the back end on entry level deals, but if they're going to re-sign Demko, like that's going to be a lot of money tied up in your two goaltenders when you need a lot of help and resources for other areas. So as the year goes on, I think it's going to paint a picture for them of what the next move is going to be. Really, I think.
What kind of stock do you put in what Abbotsford's done, not for the future of that club, but for the future of the Canucks?
I think it's everything. I was lucky enough to go on a run with Grand Rapids, Detroit's farm team in 2013 when we won the Calder Cup. And what I learned out of that as a 22-year-old, without that run, I might have got a handful of games, but I don't think I would have been able to stay an entire year and be a call-up guy. Like the game we won was our 100th game of the season. I'd never come close to playing that before, but the biggest things I learned out of that run was, one, how to play in playoff hockey when you're exhausted and there's no break in the schedule of an easy team coming in, right? It's the best teams and you have to perform. But I think the biggest thing that I learned, and it helped me through the rest of my career, was how you're just knowing what I could push my body to. Like I could play my top level game in game 100. 2 days later, I couldn't walk to the couch anymore. But at the same time, like I knew that I had not even just another gear, but another couple in me, and bringing that into my summer training, back into my on ice. Like I know I could just keep pushing, and my game elevated so far for all these guys, like whether they're old, but especially the younger guys, it's just going to be paying massive dividends through the rest of their career because they're finding things out about themselves they didn't know.
And I would assume you'd say the same thing for Manny Malhotra?
I would say definitely. I mean, it's really interesting, right? Like this is his first year in Abbotsford, and I just brought up my team in 2013. That was Jeff Blashill's first year as a head coach in the American League as well, and he ends up going to Detroit, and it was what it was there. But he just got his second chance in Chicago. Like Manny Malhotra is learning how to coach at pressure times in the year, learning how to ride the momentum wave. It's not always just your best players that need to be going on the ice. And through a long playoff run, you'll have your third line ends up being your best line one night, and you got to be able to feel that and use them in the right moments. And he's clearly clicked the right buttons because they're waiting to play game one tonight of the Western Conference Finals.
Finally, Landon, we're going to give you the general manager's hat for a couple of seconds. You have the 15th pick in the draft. What are you doing with it?
I think I'm probably watching someone else make that pick. I would imagine that they're going to be moving it. Like if it was me, I look at moving that with another good piece to find, either your center for sure, or at minimum a top six winger. There's different ways to move things around, but with how that track record of draft picks has gone, like they need help up front and they need it right now. And that's a really good piece for it.
That's Landon Ferraro. I'm John Shannon. This is 100% Canucks. We'll talk to you in a couple of days.